this computer. Well, good morning to my first and inaugural group of going through the laws and tying and trying to create a spiderweb effect of the laws and how they all intertwine. So we are in week 10. And everyone's been more than attentive, so I greatly appreciate that. And hopefully y'all have gotten as much out of this as I have. But before we get into law 10, which is the law of two rabbits, I want to kind of go back and highlight everything. That way we can start seeing that web being put in front of us as we go through life, and we can figure out what needs to be caught and what needs to just be we let pass through. But these laws are done in order for a reason. I have not fully discovered what that reason is, but the more I go through them and intertwine each one of the laws, I can start seeing a pattern. But with the law of the architect, we discussed what our skills are, what we're passionate of, and what our business is, and what we're going to be taking forward and making a business on. So with that, that's our passion, that's our drive. Then we had, being the architect, you can't do everything at one time. You're not a CPA. You may not be a marketing major. You may not be someone that's good at writing grants, like some people here in this group. But you create a law of exchange. But in the law of exchange, you're not giving up full ownership. You're always going to be majority shareholder. You're always going to have the last say in whatever happens. And with that then ties directly into the law of open cycles, because if you're trying, as we just talked about, if you're trying to be the marketing person or the salesperson, and that's not your skill set, you need to hire someone through the law of exchange to help close those cycles and let them be proficient at those things. And in that, you're helping feed what we call the principle of present. So when someone's fully engaged and they don't have a lot of open cycles, they're more apt to be better at what they're doing, which ties into what we're going to be talking about today. But the law of separation, we have to be able to separate personal and business. We have to be able to separate marketing from sales, IT from social media, and everything else. So we have to be able to create the separation and know where our teams lie and our strengths lie. Then we look at the law of hindrance. It's, that comes into fear, because being the architect, it is your baby and you are very protective of that. So there are fears of things that have happened in the past that's going to create a hindrance for you that may cause you to micromanage your team, which is, opening up cycles again, which shouldn't be open. So you have to figure out what that is. And then we look at the principle of perseverance, which, again, I've said is one of my favorite laws or principles, is because you have to know where your passions lie. And I jokingly say that my passions lie in golf, scotch, and cigars. So if I can afford those three and I can work along the way, hey, that's pretty good for me. But those things help give me energy when things get hard, because as the architect and as an entrepreneur, there's one thing that we are guaranteed as an entrepreneur: hardship, and that we will have to adapt and overcome. So if you're not able to feed your soul and give yourself the energy to persevere when things get hard, then it's going to create a ripple effect, which can affect your family, your friends, or even your business. Then we looked at the law of the caterpillar, which was great because I love this one here, because as we get into the law of caterpillar, we're able to identify the steps that we're in. And with that, you're looking at, and I like looking strictly at just the caterpillar. Are we a caterpillar? Are we in the chrysalis? Are we a butterfly? So as an architect, and Dan said it, and it is said in the laws, but we're either in obscurity, resistance, or acceptance. And this ties directly into the law of the caterpillar as well. So as we're the architect building to a pre-revenue business, these are things that we're trying to grow. We're not as pretty as a butterfly, but we're working towards that because we know our vision. We've got people to buy into our vision, help us grow our vision to get it out into the market. And then that that chrysalis is a cocoon around us, but that cocoon can almost, if we're working on the business or in the business, not on the business, that can be that encapsulating cocoon. But once we figure out how to break through that chrysalis and come out as a butterfly and really spread our wings, now more people are paying attention to us. Now we have eyes on us and they're looking at us and saying, oh my God, Cynthia and what she's doing, Teresa and what she's doing, Cherie, what she's doing, Benson, what he's doing. What we're seeing is this, wow, it's that acceptance. And now you're able to start thriving. And that's where you start, really getting more people looking at you and you're attracting better talent. And then we talked about the law of the straight line last week, which talks about, how money is made, which now ties us into what I'd like to say is the law of two rabbits or the law of the rabbits. And with this law here, once we get through and we're spreading our wings and trying and flying about, spreading our vision, we're getting more ideas put in front of us that, could be good, very, very good for our business, but they also could be bad. But in this stage, you're also maybe not at a point of really crushing it revenue wise. You're making money, but you're not making money where you're not able to be in the business. You're still working on the business while working with active hours. So you start looking at how to scale and do different things, but you have to stay consistent and you have to be willing to say no. Because once you start chasing two rabbits, one of those rabbits, because these guys are quick, I just want you to think of, what a rabbit is, they're quick. You can easily start chasing a rabbit thinking they're going towards that same goal that you have, but one may start shooting off just a little bit in variance, just 1 degree. But 1 degree over 100 yards is several feet. 1 degree over several miles is several hundred yards wide. So you're diverting your time and resources. So with this here, I think this law really ties back to, for me, the law of the law of exchange. Because if you're the architect and you've got your team around you, you've laid your vision out, but you're not squashing those underneath you by saying it's my way or the highway. You're allowing them to feed into your business. And I said this last night on another call, is if you have people that you trust and you want them to take over the business as you step away and work on other larger scale ideas, maybe let them take control of a task that may be below your pay cycle. Let's say we're charging $500 an hour, but your employees are charging $100. Let them take that and run with it. And then you help guide them and make sure that it's adhering to your vision as you grow both of them. But you also have to be willing to say, after a period of time, if it's starting to divert too much resources and time from that vision, to put it, set it aside or, offload it. And the reason I think of this is there's a gentleman in the alliance that I like calling my spirit animal. His name's Craig Hanley. So if you haven't met him, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But if you have met him, you just know he's a larger than life guy. But for me, and Dan says it himself. He hires people and he trains them for a year, and then after that period of time, because he's been working with them for a year, he knows what their skill sets are, and he's going to invest in them. So he's becoming a partner at the ground level. And that's creating passive income for Dan or Craig because he's investing in them. Because he knows that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. So in that instance, did Dan or Craig start chasing two rabbits? Absolutely not. They were still pursuing their vision, mentoring, creating a law of exchange, setting forth an abundance exchange by saying, hey, you spend a year with me, I will help fund your project and get your business off the ground, but I want to be part owner. And if you do that 5, 10, 15, 20 times, you now have 5 to 20 different revenue streams. And because you train them, you know how they think, you know their nuances, you know their quirks, and you know the business because you're invested in it. And you didn't just invest in it and walk away. You invested in, and because it's someone that you know spent time with and built a relationship with over time, you're staying involved. Now you're not working in the business or on the business. You've invested on the business. And that's that nice thing is because now your investment is a little bit more sound because we in the laws we hear that there's active hours income, which we all have the same number of hours every single week. And if anyone's found additional hours, I'd love to find out how you did that. And let's write a book and let's go make a lot of money. I think people would be very happy to read that book, but that doesn't happen. Then there's also people borrowing time, which is the law of exchange, getting 10 hours. And we talked about this on last week's call. It's getting an intern. You know, there's someone that we look up to people as we discussed last week, but there are people that look up to us. How do we invest in them? We may not have money to give them, but we have time and knowledge to share with them, which is in the right hands can be a lot more valuable than a cash infusion. Um, and we're able to do that. And that I think is the better investment in human capital. And one of the later laws that you'll get to is the law of vertical growth, which I think is law 38. It actually references this, the human capital side of it. And you'll be able to tie it back to this. Maybe you'll hear that law and then come back and watch this. But with that, when you have money making money for you, when you're investing in something, there's always a gamble. There's always a gamble, but you can mitigate that risk by the people you're investing in and the businesses you're investing on. So, with that, it helps you to stay on the path of chasing that one rabbit, but knowing that there are other paths, but that path may not be right for you to go down because time spent in active hours, your time is better spent on larger, bigger ideas and not some of these other things. So it's something to think about as you go through. But you should always look at it and say, all right, in best case scenario, what does this do for me? What does this do for my vision over a year, 3 years, or 5 years? Does it help me grow? Does it help or does it mitigate my growth? And when you're asking those questions, you also have to look at it. That was best case scenario. What's worst case scenario? If this just really tanks, how much of my time and resources are being spent? And that is a really good indicator of how you say yes or no to things. And then the one thing that I think goes not said enough in the alliance is with this group right here, there is a wealth of knowledge and resources that we all have at our disposal, but we're not afraid to say, hey, I'm willing to help one another. But with that, I may call up Vince and say, Vince, I got an idea. Here's what I'm thinking. And Vince may, yeah, I can see that being a good idea. But he may say, it could be a good idea, but not for you. And we need that feedback. If you don't have a sounding board, get you one. And I don't say one person, I say 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people and bounce the ideas off one another. Before we started recording this, Cynthia and I were talking, And Cynthia was talking with another alliance member and providing information. And it was very well received. And it showed another path to create more revenue without diverting things. Because, when Cynthia and the other coin carrier had that conversation, it was like, all right. But then that coin carrier came to me and some other folks and said, hey, what does this look like? And we just ran it through different filters. What's good? What's bad? How quickly can we roll this out? What are the metrics? Are we creating more work for less money, or are we creating more work for even higher earnings? And we ran it through all these different filters and found out it's a really good idea. But unless you're willing to have a conversation and saying, I understand that I don't know it all, and understand that there is a fair exchange, and that there is cycles that should maybe not be open, or cycles that should be opened. But I think it ties into what we're looking at here. And I love how in this law, it talked about the man who worked for 15 years, and the news outlet got a hold of it and said he was an overnight success, and he was offended by it. And I think we're all that way. I think we would all be that. I say I'm going to be an overnight success in about 10 years, because no one's paying attention to what I'm doing on the grand scale. There are a few people that are paying attention to what I'm doing, but not a lot. But those that are paying attention know how hard I'm working, and the time I'm trying to put in, and the resources I'm trying to put around it, and the network. But a lot of people will not see that sweat and equity that puts in it. But, as I've said in the last couple of weeks, I've been able to say no to more opportunities than I've said yes to, which is, the two rabbits, the law of the rabbits. Because I know what my vision is, I know what my goal is, and I know what I can do and what I cannot do. And I have a team around me that can help me pursue things, and I know their strengths. And I have a partnership built with these folks. And if I need to go and build upon that, I have to do a JV or something else along that. And right now, that's not where I need to be doing. I need to be looking at larger revenue generating activities in larger VCs, or not VCs, larger partnerships for the next 3 to 5 years, not just for the next year, which I alluded to last week as well. But anyways, I've spoken for a fair amount of time here, but I want to hear your thoughts as we come to the end of this 10-week session on how the law of the rabbits is, hitting you today, and how you see this law and how it ties into the first 9 laws that we've talked about, or, and let's just have a conversation about it.
Yeah, the Law of the Rabbit is definitely one of the most memorable. And the thing that, based on what you were saying, Matt, the time is never really controlled by us. I mentored an African American woman in North Omaha to start a LLC, and then that was 3 years ago. And then just recently, she started a nonprofit. And then things finally got lined up. And along the way, she's like, Vince, you're my business coach. One day I'm going to pay you. And it's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Let's just get these things in line. And just recently, she's brought a number of African American civic leaders that are doing youth basketball, girls basketball, leveling the playing field to start nonprofits. And yeah, we had to really cut our fees because now there's another person in the pie, but it was business that I was telling my colleague, I'm like, we didn't do any business development for this. It's just coming. So that was a good mentorship kind of payoff. The thing that I struggle with, and I guess it goes back to time, could be the answer, but when you're trying to help someone or mentor someone, it's like, the startup costs, where they almost have nothing and you're like, well, I really don't want to put in my capital. And then it was something that we were talking about. Well, I love the bellwether late night bar stories where we put things through filters, but wouldn't it be great if there was a real kind of incubator pitch way to get an idea to you, Matt, to get an idea to Craig or Dan or other influential people that say, you know what, I'm here to help. I want to hear the ideas. If there was a semi-formal mechanism to pitch through a filter, because that wire brushing would make the idea better too.
Mhm.
So I get it, but capital is an issue. And you know, if you take time out of the equation, well, 3 years later, she did it on her own. So, but capital does accelerate things. And but sometimes it's good to let someone do it on their own and figure it out. So I get both sides of it, but then there's sometimes you're like, man, that gal could really use a little bit of capital infusion or some, you know, QuickBooks or accounting and I guess my final question to the group is, you know, if you do invest in someone, how do you monitor the finances when it's a young person and it's, you know, who sees the QuickBooks, who does that? That's always been a challenge for me. It's like, and I've always been told, it's like Mitch Russo, he said, Vince, I've been a minority owner in 19 companies. Do you know how many times I've been paid back? I was like, 0. He's like, yep. So that 10% minority owner in a company of you mentoring someone, he's like, don't worry about that. He goes, that's why I just charge a fee.
Mm.
And so that was another kind of wise mentor, you know, gray beard, Mitch Russo kind of advice. So throw those kind of concepts out to the group here. And congratulations, Teresa, on your TEDx.
You.
Can I hop in for a sec?
Sure.
Vince, do you know that on the website there is a semi-formal thing that you can put, you know, your pitch deck in and can, yeah, I was just curious if you knew about that.
Oh yeah, it was on and off again. Is it on again? Does it work?
Oh, I have no idea. I I just know at one time, probably before Ira updated the website. I don't know if it's still there now or not, but when you said that, it just made me think of that there is they are trying to be I think Central's trying to be intentional around having something semi-formal where you can put in your pitch deck. You can, I don't want to say apply for funding, that doesn't sound right, but you can pitch for other investors. That's probably to invest in what you're doing.
Yeah, I recall that. I just thanks for the reminder. I'll take another look at that.
It's not there.
All right, what's the news?
So that portion has been taken down for a time being. and I'm gonna give my insight on that. Like, I remember the guys that originally launched that and Dan who put in place. And it's a journey. But here's the one thing that I've seen in my 3 years in the Alliance. Everyone comes into the Alliance thinking it's a mastermind group or a networking group of some sort. And then they were finding out about this tool and they were just putting in this saying, hey, I need $75,000 in funding. I need $500,000 in funding, but not having any construct around it saying, hey, I just need this. But if with any investor, you know, the pitch decks need to be small. They need to be less than, 15, 16 slides, because you're pitching to people that probably don't know the business. They're just going to either invest in you or the idea. So it created a lot of it created a good funnel, but when it was being oversaw by several people, it became too much. And the time of exchange for the people wanting to provide their time to look at these things versus the volume, it became almost a criminal exchange, in my opinion, where I honestly believe that people need to spend more time in the laws and understanding and having more conversations about things. Because I can say for me in my company that I own, this year we will have done $2.5 million in revenue through the environment. We take a percentage of that, but myself and the other two ownership partners I have within this, we have not taken a salary. So for us, we look really good on a P&L because we're not taking a salary. But once I put my ridiculous salary in there, we're not breaking even. We're running at a loss. But my vision for me versus my company's vision align very similar. So I'm not chasing two rabbits. It's about business development. It's about bringing people together and bringing solutions across the entire country and maybe internationally at some point. That's what the business does. And I've actually, last trip to Mobile, I went to Chase and I said, Chase, I know that I was going to get back with you, but I was like, I haven't gotten back with you because I'm not ready to have this conversation. And that's a hard place to be as an entrepreneur, to say, I'm not ready to have the conversation about you possibly investing. Because I know his level of what he's looking for, and I wasn't ready for that. So we have to, be cognizant. And law of exchange is a very good filter to run it through, because there are a lot of companies out there that I've seen and I've heard people say on the calls, hey, I need $250,000. I need $500,000. Well, what are you going to do with that money? If you don't have it down to the penny of how that money is going to be spent, whether it be marketing, whether it be software, whether it be hardware, whatever it is, because in the law of the rabbits, they talk about building the asset. As the architect, that's intellectual property that we own. We're bringing it forward. The asset is what's going to help create that multiplier for where you might be able to sell your business for 4, 5, 10, whatever that metrics may be, but you have to build the asset. If you're thinking of yourself as the architect being the asset, your business is not worth more than your salary. So you have to build the asset. So I'm going to pick on Teresa since she just did her TEDx, but you can't be a grant writer your entire life, because that scales. And now all of a sudden you go from, I'm going to hypothetical number 10 a week to 1,000 a week. That you have to hire people to do that. But maybe you have to have a software to run it through and say, all right, well, here's what it saw. And I hate software because, you look at resumes, it didn't ring. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, unfortunately, but if you had something to run it through, that's the asset that builds upon itself. So you have to look at that and say, that's where I'm spending the money. I think a lot of people lose focus of that. They're like, hey, well, I need the money because I want to pay myself a 6-figure salary. And I don't think that's the case for everybody, but it is a part of the case, whether we want to call that 80-20 to the positive or 80-20 to the negative. And whatever that looks like, we have to think about that there. But I think it will come back, and you'll know on the calls who the people are to send stuff to or reach out to find that value and say, hey, I'd love to just throw this by you. Michael Garrison at Central, great guy. He's not very vocal. He's not out there a lot, but if you've been privy to any of the ambassador calls, you've probably spoken with him. He might be someone. Chase, Dan, you send it to Dan or send it, and he might say, hey, let me send it to so and so, or send it to this person. And those are the people you can start utilizing that as a sounding board and really help put that, as you call it, that steel brush to it, that fine tooth comb, and getting it, really smoothed out so you can take it forward. And I think that's what more people need to spend time on, so they can see, is this the architect speaking, or am I trying to build the asset? And that's what the pitch deck should be. There should be a true separation in those two. The architect is casting the vision and the idea, but the asset is what you've got to build, because that will supersede you staying a part of the business just as a silent partner, as a minority or majority owner, or whether you sell it off at a later point in time.
Yeah, those are great concepts. I just wanted to add that I am going to do a pitch deck on ClearPath EPM, the Prepare My School, and the Totality Dashboard, because there's school shootings daily. The University of Virginia one was tragic. And my colleague, he's traveling to DC today to a teachers conference, and that 15-slide pitch deck and the $250,000 investment is going to be to building a situational awareness app where kids can text in and say, hey, there's a creepy guy in the corner. He's never been there before. And it gets to the right people, because everybody's going to use their phones and everybody has eyes. So militarily, it makes sense. And everyone has a passion to secure churches, schools, and businesses. If we had $100,000, $250,000, $500,000 endowment in Bellwether, and people made it into the group through the commitment to integrity and the commitment to the credo, it would be really neat to have a low level $5,000 grant for people to start businesses, people that we're mentoring. And that would be a really neat initiative, where the people that started the endowment would be on the Shark Tank board, so to speak, and they would get the pitches and they would say, yeah, okay, $5,000. And you know what, if it doesn't pan out, but then again, if it does, the one home run would make Bellwether really really help those that are disadvantaged, that were underserved. And so obviously that's my mission, working with veterans, women, minorities, and the persons with disabilities. So that would be kind of a neat idea too, which would be less than the big 100,000 6-figure requests. It'd be like, here's a little small business startup.
Well, yeah, and that's a great thing to have, and even in my bylaws, I've listed, when ProSense hits a certain revenue and I'm able to take my salary would be capped at that. Anything above that would go to creating scholarships for trade organizations, so somebody could go to a trade school. And you're talking, $5,000 a year, but if I could do that for 5 or 6 people, I'm building the next generation. And then for me, if I'm given a scholarship, I'm going to know who each one of these people are, and I'm going to be putting forth my time to nurture and mentor them, which could be far more than the scholarship amount. Because once they get through a trade school and they're a journeyman or a plumber or an HVAC technician, whatever that may be, to say, all right, well, now I've got someone that's invested in my education, but now they're investing in me becoming a entrepreneur, small business owner. And that's my way of reproducing the Dan model or the Craig model, or, it's not, I say those two just because I have such admiration for both of them. But that's one way to do it. But I'm not looking to give. They have to earn everything, because luckily for me, no one's given me anything. I've had to earn everything. I've watched my dad earn everything. And I've had people offer to become a partner, and I've had to turn them away because I'm like, one, it's not that I don't like the person. I just don't want their insight into my business. And I don't want that huge influx of cash, because why did I have a misappropriation of funds? And that's me being humble. And we've talked about this earlier in this, you have your humility and your ability. Your humility should always be above your ability. And with that, I think you're absolutely right. There should be that. And I think it will come. I really do think it will come in the alliance. But we need to, make sure the principal perseverance. When things get hard, will you still push forward and think more creatively? Because there are people that are multi-billionaires that started with less seed money than we're all asking for. And they started in garages. But, when you don't have the capital and you start looking for new ideas, you become more innovative. You become better skilled at looking at other avenues to create revenue that may not be like you talked about earlier with, you didn't put the business development dollars in, but you've all of a sudden discovered this new business. And that might be something that, helps fund things along the way. You're like, oh, well, we weren't looking at this, but also now we've got this revenue stream coming in, and that's a great place to be. But it's not there if you're always getting wins. And if no one's heard it, I would recommend that you listen a little bit more intently. But Dan has said that he wants to invest in people that have, failed more times than not. It's not that they're failures, but it means that they've kept getting up. You got knocked down 100 times, but you got up 101. And it's because we don't have it right every time, but your resiliency to go through and keep going after your goals, your passions, that is what people want to invest in. When things get hard.
Sorry, I got a PhD in that. So I just wanted to say that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I love it. All right.
Teresa or Cynthia, your wheels are turning. We're going to defer to you.
Such a rich conversation. There's so many points I'm taking away from it. But let me just pick up on something you said about that model, Vince. I'm on a couple of different groups where we do that with innovation and technology, right? So different startup companies can come to us. It's kind of a Shark Tank, but it's really focused on technology, software as a service. So it may be something that, but I like your idea of doing it with smaller, more maybe under the underserved market, looking for just small amounts. And it might be something you might want to just start outside of Bellwether and get the model going, and then be able to at some point share it with Bellwether. But I think it's a really marvelous idea what you're talking about. And
I love the credo of Bellwether, and I love the young Bellwether ideas that get thrown out, like to build the next generation, to have like what do they call that term? The young Bellwether
youth.
Bellwether youth. So possibly like the person that says, I want to build no one makes the 3-flavor Chicago popcorn here in Omaha, and I want to have a popcorn stand in North Omaha, and I need $5,000. And I read all the Horatio Alger books from the 1909, and I know what it takes, and I've sold popcorn as a Boy Scout, and I'm ready for this. And they pitch it to the Shark Tank. It's like, you know what? This guy just earned $5,000. Go get your popcorn maker and your mixers and bag it, get your license. But anyway, I like the Bellwether concept that they've committed to the credo. I think we could start it on the outside and say, hey, look at this. But I just love the fact that you go through a commitment to integrity. And that's why Bellwether are my people.
Yeah, no, I totally
we've had that screening.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. But there's also you can take that credo, and I love how Dan had presented that, how many companies, Matt, maybe 10,000 or something, they wanted to have adopt the credo. And so, that's what I did with my company. Is I said, okay, here's our new credo, and went through it with everybody. So I get that you like within Bellwether, and it's kind of, but anyways, just a thought. I love your idea of what you're doing. But going back to the Law of the Rabbits, first of all, Matt, the way you went through those 10 things was marvelous. I'm glad we recorded it, because you get the laws, each one individually, but as you told the story, that was really well done, and it just it brought the 10 laws and the 8 laws and 2 principles to life. So it was really very cool. I appreciated that. But on the law of the rabbits, I'm really two things come to mind, that maybe 3 things, but one, I like where Dan talks about focus, right? And it kind of always reminds me of that, where it's follow one course of action until successful. So to me, that's how do you implement the law of the rabbits? Focus. So I really appreciated that. And it also ties back to when I'm recognizing that I'm not following the law of the rabbit. It ties back to the 3rd law of open cycles. Then I have all these open cycles going on, and energy and time and everything is just dissipated, and there's no, how do you possibly get any kind of compounding effect of the and return on the time and money and energy that you're investing in that? You just really don't when you have all these open cycles and you're trying to follow all these things. So for me, it was no, I'm going to really figure out how to make sure I'm applying it so that I'm also closing open cycles, which just deplete me. And so I thought that was really brilliant how you tied them all together. And the 3rd thing I just leave you with is a number of different people that I work with. I would call them starters. So there's some people who are really good at starting stuff, and that's what they like to do. They're not very good at implementing or closing, right? Some people are really good at implementing. They don't start, but if you give them an idea, they'll go implement, take that hill. And the same thing, some people are really good at closing. And so when I would be coaching executives, I'd kind of assess, where are they? Because if they're really good at starting stuff, they could have their organization going in all different directions because they started 10 things. And and that's kind of back to, now I'm recognizing it. That's the law of the rabbit. You're really good at starting. So it was just tied together so much of, this was a really rich discussion. I really appreciate it, but it tied together a number of the different pieces of the laws, and just really sensitized me, as did Dan when he talks about focus. And, the dispersion of energy and effort in so many directions dilutes the ability to really focus, chase the one rabbit, and really, hold the, back to separation, right? Keep the vision, but you can iterate on strategies until you get it successful.
Mhm.
So I just really enjoyed that conversation.
Well, one of the things that, and I was very guilty of it, when I first joined, I listened to the laws. I was excited to get the laws because I was told that, listen to it on the website first, because you're spending time on the website, because they can track the time that we spend on the website. All right, I did that. So every time I got the laws, listen to it 1, maybe 2 times. And then I wait 7, 10 days, whatever that may have been. And I listen to the next one with no recollection of what the previous law was. But as I started getting further into the journey in the alliance and making connections and seeing how people were talking about it, that's when I started to, take it upon myself to, see how everything's being painted. I think of, with the painting behind me, I also think of Bob Ross, let's paint a little happy little tree. But everything starts with a stroke, or an idea. But our journey, whether it be in Cherie's real estate development that she's trying to do up in Canada, what Vince is trying to do, what Teresa's trying to do, what you're trying to do, Cynthia, what we're all trying to do, we're writing the page. The page is a part of the chapter, but what does the book look like? And there's 52 laws. That's the book. No one read the first chapter of Lord of the Rings and said, "Oh, that's a great book." It said, I'm intrigued. I want to know what's happening next. There's always, and with this here, we don't have the drama. We don't have the bad guy. We don't have that constant draw to go back and draw correlations. But we have to look at it as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as leaders that are working in a human capital space. How do we influence and bring forth that? And the credo and what Dan in the Alliance is wanting to do is getting it into 10,000 businesses. Will hopefully get more people into the Alliance that will start applying these laws and putting that filter in front of them and moving forward. But if you skip over one, that's fine. But if you start skipping over chunks, 5 or 10 laws at a time, you're not seeing how, especially in the filter, there's a lot of stuff that's just coming at you and it's just going right by, and you're not going to catch it because you don't have your senses up for it. You don't have your guard up for it. You're not on alert for certain things. And I think that, for me, it's 10 laws. There's 52. I didn't decide, hey, how do I break it into, an equal number? I just said 10 because this will take you into law 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all the way through, and how these laws intertwine. And like last night, I was discussing law of vertical growth. And luckily in that law, it references the law of exchange, law of a straight line. It references the having a stroke. What am I thinking? Our active hours versus working with people, getting active hours from someone else, or money making money for you. It references all those. But the later you get in the laws, they become so much more about the details. Well, right now, these first 10, I think 12, maybe even 15 laws, you're getting nice big brush strokes of what's going on so you can start seeing that canvas. Like I'm looking at the picture behind Cynthia. I mean, it's a phenomenal picture, but if you look at it, there's not a lot of color. But it creates a beautiful image. But if someone went in there and started doing some other stuff, that image just becomes more in depth because you could say maybe that's a 30,000 foot view, not the 5,000 foot view. When you get later into the laws, you're getting more in the details of how things are intertwined and how they're going to work. But if you've skipped over, if you've taken the shortcut on the earlier laws, it will be more difficult and things will just fall by the wayside unintentionally. I think that's why for me, I recently got the last, I think 10 laws within the last 6 weeks. And that's all I've been listening to. Like I listen to all 10 of those every single day, almost, except the weekends. I listen to all of them because that's what I haven't discovered. I'm not a master of the first 40. I'm not. But I constantly keep applying it. And that's what I want for each of you. And then as you go into year 2 or year 3, and as you become a maven, I want you to be able to take this lesson and put your own spin on it and help impact, because your reach within the Alliance of people that you're bringing in or people that are coming in will be far greater than mine. But what I think I'm doing, I'm giving better reach to Dan or Chase or Aaron or Michael or other people. And hopefully y'all are finding the value. But I know for a fact y'all are better off than I am at educating people or being a mentor for someone, because I think y'all have such a huge heart and a huge drive to want to help other people. So, I think this is just the stepping stone to really make this thing happen. And to Vince's point, and to Cynthia's point, take that idea, because luckily we're in a community called the Bellwether Alliance that is looking to grow, looking to make it better for all. And there are things I've been flat out against. And it's not because I didn't like the person that was doing it. I just didn't agree with it. But I can say those things in the Alliance to those people, not talking behind their back, saying, hey, I don't agree with this. They're like, okay, I understand. Well, this is what we're trying to do, but I can see your perspective. They never criticized me. And I didn't criticize them saying, hey, I'm leaving or anything like there. That's just, it didn't align with what my vision was. But we all have a vision of what we want the alliance to be. And now that you're in the alliance, we have the ability to help paint the picture for what the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years look like. And also, for Cherie, that Bellwether Youth Program might be a great application for you and some of the stuff that you're doing. And
I can't wait. Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the comic book yet, it may be good to send an email to Shaman or Nico asking for a digital copy or something like that. It's really cool. I've gotten an episode, a copy of it, and then I was able to snag a couple extra copies and give it to my boys. And the lessons are there. Again, it's just good fundamental lessons. It's not the 10 Commandments. It's not scriptural. It's just good, hearty lessons about how other people should be treated. And I think in how other people should be treated, it's tied directly to the law of exchange and our credo. Because the number 10 in our credo is my favorite. So if you don't know it off the top of your head, it says treat people the way you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. I'm summing it up, and it's just beautiful, and that's what we need. But like, I guarantee I would not be sitting here today if people do not take forth time to educate me, show me a different path. And I feel very blessed for being in front of each of you. I'll share my little knowledge and the insights that other people have given me. But our impact can be huge. And as we come up on the 5 minutes till we're done, I know that there's a lot that we can all do for each other. And every time someone asks me after I get on an introductory call, they're like, what can I do for you? I'm like, share, or comment my LinkedIn post. Pretty simple. I'm not asking for money. I'm just, but how do we support each other? And for me, that's how I want people to support me. But I want that, every one of us has our own form of support. I know Cherie sent her thing to me last week. And I've sent that out to a couple people. So hopefully we'll know something.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
But we're gonna keep working. And just because this is the last day of these going through the laws, this communication does not stop with us. We're always, we're still in a group chat together. So just say, hey, everyone want to hop on a call? Because we are building a community. And this is one little house in the cul-de-sac, this little group right here. There's a great big community called the Bellwether. So we're going to stay together. We're going to work hard, and we're going to become very, very successful. But we cannot lose sight that hardships are going to happen. We have to have perseverance, and we have to be able to adapt.
That's beautiful. Really, this has been an amazing journey with you, Matt. I just, you made a comment early on that you hope that we have learned as much or taken away from this as much as you have, and I have to say it's been tenfold for me. So, whether I get when you teach something, you always reinforce it and relearn it for yourself. But and I'm sure you got that for you. For me, this has been like tenfold. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it was good timing because I was probably at a plateau with the laws and I really needed to see the higher level connection. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's helped take them from silos to the interconnected web, which has been really useful to think ahead and think next steps of how I want to create things. But it's good reminders for me of some of the different aspects, looking to close some cycles and getting the right people in place and just all the things fitting together.
I've always appreciated everyone's own personal take on the laws. So I'm taking away how people have viewed their laws and how they've put it to practice in their own lives. That's a huge nugget, a learning nugget for me, because I love just seeing how people see it through a different lens than I do. So yeah, thanks, Matt, for leading us in this. And I'm excited to see what we've taken from this. And I know for myself, I plan on putting out there, I want to teach, because I know the biggest learning is to teach the laws. So one of my learnings is around open cycles, because I'm usually a person who's like, okay, let's just do this. And I don't consider my other open cycles. And that was a huge one for me. So in my mind now, I'm thinking in January, I'd love to do this with another group of 5. But then I'm like, hold on, wait. How many other cycles do you have open already, Cherie? So I love how the laws have started to shift my thinking. But I know that the greatest learning is when we teach. So I might, that's what I'm thinking of, is open another cycle of this for January. But it's been great to get to know everyone a little bit better. And I hope to, get to know you further as we journey together in impacting this world.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask, what laws are you, I know everyone's at maybe a different state, but what laws are you on currently? What's the most recent law that you've received?
I've gone through all of them, and
Okay.
I'm gonna start back through, like you had said, you're meditating on like your last 10. I'm gonna start to really go through deliberately a second time this year.
So for me, that sounds like you've gotten to the first 40. They haven't unlocked the last 12 for you. So, and again, I don't have a magic wand I can wave and say, whoop, you're Maven. Or whoop, here's your additional 12 laws. It took me 3 years to get it. Some people got it in 2, and whatever that may look like. But go through it, listen to it, keep doing that. Because there will be an email I'm sending to Central, just talking about everyone that was a part of this, and you're, how you're constantly trying to improve, because that's what the Alliance is. We're looking for people that aren't resting on their morals of, I did good, I should be okay for here on out. No, I did good, but how do I get to great? And that's what we're all looking for, whether it be great in our own little right or great in our social impact on a global scale. So
Matt, thank you for that. To answer that question, I am on the principle of money phasing at the moment. And the way that I do it is I take one law per week and I listen to it every single morning while I'm getting ready. And because I'm a little daft, it takes a little while for the actual thing to get into my head. So I just have to keep listening to over and over.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
So and that's perfectly fine, because that's a great law, the law of money phasing, and it's very impactful, and it ties directly in for me the law of the caterpillar and the law of the straight line. There's direct correlations between those two. So but every one of you, whatever law you're on, if you have questions, I'm happy to help you out. I may not be as apt or in depth and in tune as I was with the first 10 in some of the later laws, but I can help you with those things. So I'm always going to be here for you. Also know that, there's, folks like Jason Duncan, there's people like Aaron Ellis, and saying, hey, I just had a question about this here, and watch how quickly they respond. I say the best way to get a hold of Jason is via LinkedIn. So if you're not connected with him, the real Jason Duncan, just connect with him on LinkedIn. Say, hey, I had a question about this law. What do you have time to discuss it with me? and he may already have done a video that he may share with you or something like that there. And Aaron, the best way to get a hold of him is, via link, WhatsApp. So, and I'm a text, phone call, or email away, so I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. But anyways, well, it was an
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
I just went onto the website and I just clicked through another page, and now I have like 41 through whatever laws open. So
Okay.
maybe I'm supposed to go through them, huh?
Does it
I was
have a
like-
date that they open?
I don't know. It's page 3 of the laws,
Yeah.
but I really haven't been on this since Ira probably redesigned the whole thing as
Yeah,
much
'cause
as I should.
I noticed that on mine. And it says law 40, like I was emailed all the laws in an audio file. So the website doesn't have the last 12 unlocked for me. So 41 says it'll unlock December 4th or something like that. So, and then 7 days later, I'll get the other ones.
I gotta run.
Yeah. All right.
So,
Well,
thank you all.
you all. It's an honor.
appreciate
Thank
you.
for this time.
Thank you.
I said,
Bye-bye.
I've been listening to the past archived calls lately
Yeah.
on the site, and there's a lot of good information there when Dan gives that teaching at the
Yeah.
beginning, to just sometimes the stories or the connections and examples there help reinforce it. And I just got 15, the law of exceeding value.
Mhm.
And so just still thinking through, and now I'm trying to remember which is which. So I thought about even just getting some note cards for myself and putting them each one on a note card with a quick little trigger to
Yeah.
remind myself, because now it's like conditions, which one was that? But if I had a little
Yeah. Well,
quick memory jog.
the law of exceeding value has a very strong core tie into the law of exchange.
Mm,
And
yeah, yeah.
more of the
I
latter
know.
part of it, the law of abundance of exchange.
I noticed that.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's helpful because these conversations are helping me look for those crisscross connections to other laws. And it's helpful for me, like you said, to go back and listen, because even now I'm at a different point than I was 6 months ago. So when I listen to the ones that I had first learned, it lands differently just because I'm at a different point
Yeah.
in the work I'm doing.
absolutely. And it's going to continue to happen that way.
I actually have created a spreadsheet for myself with different columns so that it helps me learn. It's like, okay, what's the main 3 points? What's the story that goes along with this principle? And what are the action points that goes along with each law? Like, what do I have to do? So
I love that.
I'm happy to share it once it's complete with other Bellwether members as kind of like a cheat. What do they call it? Those notes?
Little clipped notes.
Cliff
Cliff notes,
notes.
yeah.
to the laws.
Maybe you should
Yeah.
share it blank to make us do the homework ourselves so we learn better. That's kind of mean, but it's also true.
If everything works out to plan, I hopefully won't work in December and I can close the cycle of the spreadsheet of the laws. So maybe in January I'll have it out if people want to join.
That's awesome. Well, hey, again, it was an honor. Thank you all. Just because this is the end of our 10 weeks doesn't mean I'm leaving you. We're just starting a new journey together. So appreciate it all. And as we say in the Alliance, live well and prosper fairly.
Well, and prosper fairly. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.